we are covering trust account requirements for the national portion of the real estate exam. Brokers have a fiduciary duty to handle client funds with extreme care, and this starts with the absolute separation of money. On your exam, you will frequently see questions about what constitutes commingling versus conversion. Commingling happens the moment a broker mixes their own personal or business funds with client money. If a broker deposits a client's earnest money check into the general business operating account, even for 1 hour, that is commingled. Conversion is a more serious offense where the broker actually spends that client money for business or personal expenses. You might see a test scenario where a broker uses a security deposit to pay the office electric bill, intending to pay it back the next day. This is conversion, and it is a major violation. The general rule for the national exam is that earnest money must be deposited into a neutral escrow or trust account within 3 business days of contract acceptance. You should watch out for trick questions that ask when the clock starts. It usually starts when the offer becomes a binding contract, and not, for instance, the moment the check is handed to the agent. Security deposits from tenants are another common area of testing. These are not the property of the landlord or the property manager. They are held in trust for the tenant and must be placed in a trust account. Detailed record keeping is the backbone of trust accounts. Brokers must maintain a subledger for every individual client within the main trust account. This means if you have 10 different buyers with earnest money in one account, you must be able to account for every cent belonging to each specific person at any given time. A common trap on the exam involves the broker's own money in the trust account. Most states allow a very small specific amount of the broker's own money to stay in the trust account just to cover bank service fees. This is the only exception to the commingling rule. If the exam asks if a broker can ever have their own money in a trust account, the answer is yes, but only for the purpose of maintaining the account and preventing it from being closed due to bank fees. To remember the core principle of these accounts, just think of the phrase, "other people's money stays in a separate spot." This reminds you that the money must be separate and the account is for others. Another trick wording involves who the money belongs to before a deal closes. Earnest money is technically the buyer's money until the contract is fulfilled or breached. If a deal falls through, the broker cannot simply decide who gets the money. They must follow the contract instructions or wait for a court order if there is a dispute. Never assume the broker has the authority to release funds without written consent from all parties. The exam will also test your knowledge of what happens to interest earned on a trust account. Unless specified otherwise by state law or the contract, the interest usually follows the principal. But the main point for the exam is that the broker cannot keep that interest for themselves. Every single transaction must be recorded, including the date the money was received, the date it was deposited, and the date it was eventually dispersed. These records must usually be kept for several years and are subject to random audits by the State Real Estate Commission. When you are taking the test, remember that the broker is the one who is ultimately responsible for the trust account, even if they have a bookkeeper or an office manager handling the daily entries. Any mistake in the trust account is a direct reflection on the broker's license. If the question asks who is liable for a shortage in the trust account, the answer is almost always the designated broker. By keeping client money separate and maintaining clear records, the broker avoids the 2 biggest license killers, which are commingling and conversion.